She stood alone at the defendant's table, eyes forward, back straight, pride intact, but beneath her calm exterior, her heart pounded. The courtroom was silent until the officer's voice, laced with arrogance, broke through. "Ladies and gentlemen, this woman clearly doesn't belong here." Her name was Imani Rhodes, a soft-spoken, intelligent black woman in her early 30s, who had been wrongfully ticketed and accused of reckless driving. She was pulled over weeks earlier while driving her late father's classic Cadillac, a car she'd been restoring as a tribute. That night, she'd simply taken it for a spin to ease her grief. The officer, Deputy Miller, assumed she stole the vehicle. He cuffed her on the spot, publicly berated her, and impounded the car before she could even explain. The case should have been dropped. But Miller insisted on pursuing charges, turning a traffic stop into a courtroom spectacle. And today, he was ready to humiliate her all over again. She was speeding in a suspicious vehicle with no valid explanation, Miller claimed, glancing around the room smugly. When I asked her for registration, she stammered and couldn't provide a straight answer. Clearly. "Objection," Imani said softly, representing herself, since she couldn't afford legal fees. "I wasn't stammering. I was crying." The judge, an older white man who had seemed disinterested until now, raised an eyebrow. "You may elaborate, Miss Rhodes." Imani inhaled. She explained how the Cadillac was the last thing her father left behind. He had taught her everything about that car. "I was nervous because I was grieving. My father had passed just 2 weeks before that night," she said. The registration was in the glove box, under his folded obituary. The courtroom went silent. But Deputy Miller pushed again. "Anyone can make up a sob story. I was just doing my job." Imani's hands trembled as she reached into her bag and pulled out a leather-bound folder. "Your Honor," she said, walking forward, "I'd like to present evidence." Inside the folder was more than just a registration. It contained certified documents showing the car legally belonged to her late father, a war veteran. Photos of her working on the car in her garage. And then, one final sheet. A letter from the mayor's office, praising Imani for her volunteer work mentoring girls in STEM. She wasn't just another face in the crowd, she was a community figure, beloved, admired. She paused, then looked Miller directly in the eyes. "You didn't ask for my name. You didn't ask why I was upset. You didn't even check the documents I tried to hand you. You only saw the color of my skin." The judge's face stiffened. "Deputy Miller, did you verify the ownership of the vehicle at the scene?" He fumbled. "Well, she was emotional, Anne." "That'll be enough," the judge interrupted. He dismissed the case immediately and issued a formal apology to Imani in court. The public gallery, which had been half empty, erupted into quiet applause as she gathered her papers. Miller remained frozen, face pale, speechless. But that wasn't the end of the story. Within days, video footage of the hearing, captured by a local journalist, went viral. People across the country were moved by Imani's strength and dignity. Soon, news outlets were calling, schools were inviting her to speak, and a foundation offered to fund her dream project, opening a community garage where girls could learn auto mechanics free of charge. Imani transformed humiliation into healing, not just for herself, but for her community. And as for Deputy Miller? After an internal investigation, he was placed on unpaid suspension and eventually removed from duty. His silence in that courtroom would echo far longer than his words. The lesson? Never assume someone's story by the way they look. Because dignity, strength, and purpose aren't found in uniforms or titles, but in truth, courage, and the power to rise after being wronged.